Here we are.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And how are you?
Great. Thanks for joining us
Good.
today.
Well, it's a very special day, although tomorrow is Remembrance Day. And as I explained to my audience, for me, Remembrance Day has been for 77 years.
Wow.
Every day I remember. I had a family.
Allow on yours?
I had a mom, I had a dad, I had brothers and sisters.
Yes.
I also remember what it's like. I live it every day that I don't have them.
Yeah, that would definitely have an impact for an everyday memory.
Yes, yes. So
Well,
you let me know.
Yeah, we have
Thank
about
you for
one
that.
more minute and then we'll have all of our classes in here.
No
So
problem.
we're really happy that you can be with us today.
Jan explained I'm hard of hearing.
Yes.
In Bergen-Belsen, the last camp, I had typhoid fever.
Okay.
And it scarred my eardrums.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll if there's anything on that anyone says that
Please.
that is hard to hear, we'll stop.
Yeah, I
and
can
we'll
hear
re-say
you
it.
very well. Thank you.
Okay.
How many classes do you have?
We have 32 teachers.
Oh wow, wonderful.
Yeah, so there'll be quite a few here.
That's okay.
Of them, so they're pretty excited to hear from you. It's actually
Yeah.
it's 8:45 now, so we'll go ahead and get started. So
Yeah,
welcome.
I have been to Alberta from high level, Grand Prairie, Peace River, all over the place. Red Deer, all over the place.
Oh, that's great.
What has stopped it is the virus.
Right. Yes, that slowed down a lot of things, that's for sure.
Actually, the last I came home in March because I was in Lethbridge and the school started to close down.
Yes.
So I was in Alberta already 2 weeks at that point. That would have been my third week and they scrambled to get me home.
Well, everyone's here, so we'll go ahead and get started. We'd like to welcome you to Raymond Elementary School, even though it's over a computer. A few of us actually had a chance to see you, I believe, at a teachers convention a few years ago, and your message has definitely impacted people. So we're excited to have you talk to our students.
I did one in February online.
Oh, okay.
Jan arranged it. It was more in a little film setup. I had to come here. Jan had some equipment, and Karen Sushi was my hostess. And then it's already booked for March.
Nice.
Next March, the teachers convention.
That's great. So go ahead. You have our students online, and feel free to get started. Yes, thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. It's a blessing to be able to do this, even at a young age at 97. I just had my birthday on the 28th of October. And why am I doing it? It's very important for young people to hear and see, as you will on slides, the power of hate. Very often, I've done over 4,000 presentations in 25 years. I ask my audiences, why do you use that word? Oh, it's a big joke. It's not a joke. Hate is a killer, as you will see. Hate murdered 1.5 million children until the age of 16. If they weren't suited for slave labor, they were murdered. 5 of those children were my nieces, a 3.5-year-old, a 2-year-old, a 1-year-old, and a 6-month, 2 months. And I have made it my mission to speak for our children whose voices were silenced by hate. They cannot speak for themselves. That's why I'm doing it. Now, it's not moving. I don't get this slide.
Sometimes if you click with your mouse right in the bottom corner, there's an arrow that comes up.
Pardon?
Sometimes if you use your mouse and click in the bottom corner, an arrow will come up to move it forward.
Well, I'm clicking the one that Jan told me to click. That I have been doing it for a long time. It's just a noise. Oh dear. And he went out with the dog. So I don't know. How am I gonna do this?
If
Just
you
keep talking.
you can. If you move the mouse, so the arrow, is there?
There is no mouse. There is no mouse here. I just point.
Is there a pad that you can drag your finger across that gets the arrow to move?
Nothing.
Jerry, can you do it?
I can't. It's actually not available to me from here. So.
Well, I don't know what to do. This is the first time this happened that it didn't work.
Well, for now, why don't you keep talking? We might not have the pictures, and
Okay.
we'll see what we can figure out.
Yeah, what you see, I'm lighting a candle on the tracks. 14 years ago, I made a journey back to hell. I had a filmmaker from Toronto. His wife, who was a nurse, teaching nursing, and my book editor from locally here. And we went back. That's the tracks they took us on. So how did it all begin? We knew there was a war because Poland was occupied in 1939. I lived in Hungary. And there were 6 children in my family, 4 girls and 2 boys. My family didn't have money to buy a house. So at the time, we lived in 2 rooms at the time of when they occupied that. Prior to that, we lived in 1 room, the room I was born in. We had no electricity, no plumbing. I wasn't even supposed to be born. My mom was sick, and the doctor ordered her to have an abortion. She refused. She stayed in bed 8 months, and here I am. So how did that affect us? 1944, March the 19th, my father came home from the synagogue early in the morning. He always went for his prayers. And he said to my mom, there are soldiers marching on the street. There were different color uniforms. And they knew, but they didn't, they sheltered us as most parents do. We were still okay. They created a ghetto. And now there is a slide and a screen on the screen. 13,000 Jewish people lived in the city. 11,000 were forced in from the villages. Every family that lived in that area had to allow other people to come into their home. And so did we. We took in a family with 5 children. So now there are 17 of us in 2 rooms, sleeping on the floor because we didn't have enough beds. That was okay. We slept on straw mattresses, some of us, and some just on the bare floor. I had a mom, I had a dad. 3 of my siblings were already married, and I mentioned the nieces, 5 little girls. They were there. It didn't last very long. May the 15th came an order. Pack your bags. You have 2 hours. You're being shipped to Germany to work in a brick factory. Well, they lied, and that wasn't unusual. They marched us to the railway station, which was 7 kilometers away. Approximately about 100 people in each boxcar. 2 pairs, one had water in it, and the other pair was to be used as a toilet. People started to die from lack of oxygen. 4 days and night standing in a boxcar, 4 days and night. That pail of water didn't last very long. And the other pail that we needed to use was flowing all over the boxcar floor. I see the images of my mom. She found a corner in the boxcar. She was squatting down, hugging 3 of her grandchildren. Judy, Hedy, Kathy, and Hedy. They were my sister Sarah's children. She died in January that year. She had encephalitis from a mosquito bite. We looked after those little girls. I asked my mom, why are you crying? She said, I'm not crying for me. I have lived. She was 48. Little did she know, or little did any one of us know in that boxcar what lies ahead. May the 19th, we arrived at destination. It wasn't Germany. It was Auschwitz-Birkenau. I turned to my mom at that point and I said, where do we work at? I was 19 then, 19 and a half. I understood that this wasn't a brick factory. Prisoners walking around with striped pajamas. That's what they looked like. I held the hand of my oldest niece, Judy. When Sarah died, I made a commitment. I will raise her. A prisoner came over in our own language that we spoke in Eastern Europe, Yiddish. He whispered, give the child to an older woman. I didn't. Not until he came back the 3rd time. Had I not let go of Judy's hand, I wouldn't be sitting here in my son's house. All women and children, pregnant women, the elderly. were sent to the left. So we had to line up. Men were separated from women. And the angel of death was standing at the gate, Joseph Megan. He didn't speak to us. He just pointed in the direction he wanted you to go, left or right. So I turned my head to the left, and I didn't see my mom. And I didn't know at that point that I will never see her. My younger sister, Ilona, she was the baby of the six of us, big girl, not quite 17, to the right, and other young females. As I mentioned, men, I never saw them again. My two brothers, my brother-in-law, my father, my grandfather, whom I adored. Women of our age, 16 and older, were spared for slave labor. We didn't know that at that point. And I didn't know, as I mentioned, that I will never see my mom. 2 days later, there were prisoners already there for 2 years, since 1942, from Austria, Czechoslovakia, and Poland. And I remember one from Czechoslovakia in the barrack. I asked her, when are we going to see her family? Her response was this: are you crazy? You're never going to see your mother or father or your little brother or sister. She pointed out to the chimney. That's where smoke, 5 chimneys cover the sky. Smoke, our family is burning. Every morning, 4:30, they ordered us to go outside, roll call. It didn't matter what the weather was like. We had to stand 2 hours. And then back into the barrack, line up for our food. And what was that? A piece of bread, heavy and dark, 70% sawdust. For those children that don't know what sawdust is, when you cut a tree down or a piece of lumber, the particles that fall down on the ground, it's called sawdust. You had to make a choice. If you wanted to live, you ate it. Soup, the same issue. Dirty water soup. Why was it dirty? It was made out of the peeling of the potatoes that were not washed. You have a choice. You want to live, you ate it. One day, half a dozen German civilian businessmen arrived. That was the day we were supposed to be tattooed. Well, I don't have a tattoo because they had priorities. They paid money to the Nazi regime for the work we are about to carry out. It was good to get away from Auschwitz, from the smell of human flesh burning. They put us in a sub-camp. And we had to march from one end of the city to the other. And that was okay too. But now it's January 1945, and there is snow on the ground. And we had no socks. We had no shoes. We had wooden clogs. We had no underwear. We were dirty and we were wet. In the factory, We heard from some of the German civilians. They heard we are going to be taken away from there. And the reason for that was the Russian forces are coming. They didn't want us to be free. They liberated, this was the capital of the Rhine, Essen. And I know for a fact they did liberate that part of the city. They didn't want us to be free. So they took us away. 4-day journey to Bergen-Belsen, where Anne Frank and her sister died, Margot. In fact, 2 years ago this month, the 4th and the 5th of November, in Edmonton, I was honored to open the Anne Frank exhibit in Edmonton. She was 4 years younger than myself. She was 15, I was 19 at that time, 19 and a half. The family left Germany, where they lived, to be safe in 1938. They went to Holland. The end result was the same. Because the Anne Frank house was sold out for $6. Somebody squealed and told the hiding place where it was. An amazing legacy for a child, what she wrote. And now it's October 1944. Where did I live at that time? I'm going to tell you where I lived. The Allies, the 3rd week of October that year, the Allies were bombing very heavily. By the time we went back to the camp that evening, smoke and rubbish were waiting. The Allies were throwing small little bombs, phosphorus bombs. They don't make a hole in the ground, but as they fall down, they light up like a match and spread like wildfire. By the time we got there was no more camp, nowhere to sleep. The kitchen also burned down, but it had a cement floor. From underneath it, dirt was taken out at some point, like a root cellar. They had straw down there. Maybe that's where they stored potatoes or carrots, whatever. We didn't know, they didn't tell us. 4 months I lived in that hall. 4 months. We did. A whole maybe 24, 30 girls. And we were scared to go outside at night because the bullies were hurting the girls. So we were sleeping on the straw, and the straw was used as a toilet. No water and no toilet paper. 4 months. How do you survive this? By not giving up hope. And I still don't. For this generation, hoping that they will find peace in their future. Very sick. 6 days I was very, very sick, lying on the barrack floor. My sister beside me, but she was not sick then. In Bergen-Belsen, the orders were given zero supply. We had nothing to eat. They wanted us to die quickly. They knew their allies were not far away. So I have typhoid fever. I didn't know that till a couple of months. My sister beside me, she was not sick. At home, when we had a fever, my mom would wet a towel. She put it on her head or on her chest to bring the fever down. And what do you do if you have no water? I urinated on a rag, put it on my head, hoping it would cool me down. You know what I learned in Bergen-Belsen? The body will not give up something we don't put in, and this is water. Please, I'm asking you, don't ever take it for granted, never. Approximately 500 died every day. No food, no water, and very sick. As I was lying on the barrack floor, very sick, I used to say, I cannot die here. I cannot die. Who's going to look after my sister? She's 3 years younger than I am. I cannot die. But I knew then that we don't have parents anymore. So here is what happened. When you take your mind off yourself and be concerned about somebody else, your problems are not that big. But what we need to remember, all of us, young and not so young, life is not about the capital I, and it's not about me. It's about we helping each other and care for those that are worse off than we are. My sister survived with me. April 15th, 11 o'clock in the morning, we were liberated. Small miracles out of the ashes. We were liberated by the British and Canadian soldiers that came in from Holland. I remember a soldier come in. There was many of them. I don't know if he was British or Canadian. I wouldn't know. But he put a red cross on my forehead. And he went to some others. At that point, I didn't know why, but I found out that was an indicator to the ambulance drivers. They are the ones to be taken away first. They converted the building, a military building, outside Bergen boundaries, made it into a hospital. 2 months in the hospital. My sister got sick in there. She already had that virus in her, typhoid fever. The Red Cross arrived from Sweden to give us some advice. They were amazing, amazing people. They took care of us in every possible way. They gave us some advice. You can go to Switzerland. You can stay in Germany in a displacement camp, or you go to Sweden. I made the choice for my sister as well. And we went to Sweden. There I regained faith in humanity by their action. Amazing, amazing people. To them, we were like brothers and sisters of the same family, the human family. It doesn't matter what your color is or religion. When you cut yourself, you bleed. When I cut myself, I also bleed. And you know what else? The color is the same. The only thing is different is our attitude. I'm asking you, please, what you hear, you cannot see the pictures, but I'm going to ask my son, maybe he's going to forward this PowerPoint to you, and then you can see it in your classes. Pass it on. Pass it on to others that will never, ever hear my voice or even see a slide. Very important not to be preoccupied, as I mentioned, with a capital I. You must share. In Sweden, 1945, October, I met a young Swede. Now he was going to Technical Institute for Engineering in Stockholm, Sweden. And before the war, second language they learned at the university, German. But during the war, they changed it to English. And that was a good thing. So we could communicate a little bit. He wanted to date me. And I said to him, you must go with a Swedish girl because I'm different. Very different. I was raised in a fundamentalist environment. My family were very religious. I'm 21 that month. I've never been in a classroom. I make up for it now, though. Here is what I learned from that young Swede. It's okay to be different. What's not okay? When we are indifferent. From him I learned not to fall in love. We fall in love and we fall out of love. I built my love based upon his strength, his compassion, and his acceptance for someone that's different. He became my husband. For 19 years, the blessing of having someone that accepts you unconditionally. And we had this beautiful son, Jan. Unfortunately, as he was driving to the Auschwitz, somebody was drinking and driving and hit him. 2.5 years later, he passed away. Jan, my son, our son, was 10 years of age. I'm asking you all, please, if you know that somebody is drinking, don't get into that car. Stay home. Love yourself and stay home. This is what I'm doing now. I've done many. I couldn't do it without my son's help. That's because scholastically, I wasn't educated. I was educated in Auschwitz. You know how? In Auschwitz, I learned what it means to have a family, the value of a family. There are challenges, yes, but don't take them for granted. Challenges, we all have them. There are challenges, sit down and talk about it. Never ever to go to bed angry because your mom or your dad wouldn't let you go somewhere. Never. What you need to do for those that still have a mom, give her a hug while you can. Don't wait till it's too late. And tell her you love her and give her a kiss. And that's what you're going to have to remember for the rest of your days. Go to bed angry, run outside, say bad words. It's not the way to live. I'm so sorry about that. I couldn't have shown you the slides. They say it doesn't come on. And my son is out walking his dog. And I am ready to take some questions from your audience.
Okay, well, thank you. Teachers, if you have any students that have any questions, or if any staff members have any questions themselves, please move close to the mic and ask the question, and we'll go from there. It might take a moment for people to get their questions ready. But,
we have a question.
Go ahead, Larissa.
Okay, hold on. My student's coming up. Right, you could just look right here. What you talk about, though?
Why did Hitler put you in the camp?
No, excuse me. The teacher have to repeat what you're saying because
Oh.
I don't hear too well.
You can say here. Okay, so this boy Riley, he wants to know why Hitler put your family in the camp.
Well, I tell you, because we had a different religion. But I'm going to tell you also, there was 11 million people he put in the camps. 6 million were Jewish people, which my family were part of them, and 5 million were not. There were people from all religions. If he didn't like them, because he hated himself, that's why. Because they lost in the first war, and he blames the minority. And that's what we still do today. We always blame the people that are smaller groups. Thank you. Very good question.
Thank you, Riley.
We have a question here. Stacy is wondering how you were able to sleep when you were standing in the car for 4 days.
You don't. You don't sleep. How can you sleep? Unless you just kind of wobble and doze. Yeah, there was nowhere. There was just standing 4 days a night. Yeah.
McKenna has a question here in our room. Okay,
What
McKenna.
was the hardest thing you encountered in the camp?
She wants to know, what is the hardest thing you encountered in the concentration camp?
But the hardest thing for me was when my mom disappeared.
That would be terrible.
That I still today the hardest thing.
Okay, we have one more here.
I want to know if you ever got to meet Hitler.
She wants to know if you ever got to meet Hitler.
Hate him?
She wants to know if you ever met
Oh,
him.
Matt. Well,
Yeah.
you tell that young lady that I only look at good-looking men. He was ugly, very ugly.
I agree.
It didn't work.
All right, we have another question here.
What did they feed you in the camp?
So Bella is wondering what you were fed while you were in the camp.
But we were fed. Well, when we worked as slave laborers, we had good soup and a good piece of rye bread, but in the camp, it was awful. They didn't give us much.
Hi, Eva. Oh, my grade
Hi.
3 class, Adrian here wants to know, did Hitler not care about anybody to do such horrible things? And this young lady here wants to know how long you were in the camps for.
1 year. 1 year. And what was the first question?
Go ahead, say it loud.
Did Hitler not care about anybody? Like,
No,
how they
that's
were?
true. He did not care about anybody. That's true.
Hi, we have a question as well. Crew here would like to know what you did. What did you do every day during the camp?
Well, and some at the slave labor place, you know, when the bombs make big holes and break the buildings, fall down. So we had to clean up and fill up wheelbarrows and shove them into the hole. Not much.
Okay, we have one more question here if possible. Okay, Jay would like to know if your family ever had to,
Ever had to hide from the bad guys?
did your family ever have to hide from the Germans, from the Nazis?
No, there was no opportunity and nowhere to hide.
I have a question texted to me from a shy staff member here, but they would like to know what happened to Judy.
My mom took all 3 of her grandchildren to the gas chamber. Judy, Kathy, and Hattie. That's where they died, in the gas chamber.
Okay, we have another question here.
How did you feel when you got out of the camp?
So we're wondering how you felt when you got out of the camp.
Scared, very scared. You know why? Because I didn't know if I can trust anybody walking on the street. We were very scared. I wasn't the only one that was scared. But then living in Sweden, as you heard me say, that helped me a great deal because they were awesome people, awesome.
I have a question.
Yeah. We have a question here.
Did anyone try to run away from the camp?
Did anyone
Not-
try to run away?
I didn't know them personally, but I know of both of them were in their 20s, a male and a female. And when they were missed, they sent the dogs and the dogs brought them back. And you know what they did to them? Everybody had to watch. They hung them. They were hung. They died. That's the only thing that I have seen personally.
Thank you.
We have a question here. Lucas would like to know if you were able to make any friends during your time.
Yes, I did. And excuse me, both of those girls also went to Sweden. And in 1948, when Israel became a state, they went to Israel to live.
Oh, sorry. Eva, I have a question. Have you thought about writing a children's book?
No, but my son has been after me to do that. So I said to him lately, just a couple of weeks ago, if he helps me, I need help. I couldn't do it anyway. I have 3 books, but the first 2, it's suited from 5, 6-year-olds and up. I had the English teacher in town here that helped me. And then the 3rd book, my son and I wrote that together. It's also grade 6 and up. So we'll see what happens next spring.
I have Riker here with a question. He's wondering if you know of people who were in the camps.
How many died in the camps?
How many would they have in one camp? How many?
Oh,
people
that
were
I
in-
have no idea.
No idea.
No idea.
Wait, wasn't it?
Hi, we have
have two-
another.
Oh, sorry.
Go for
I
it,
have,
Dale.
okay, I have 2 kids with a question. It kind of goes part and part. Rowan is asking if you know what happened to your father, and then Tawny
Yes, I
is
do.
asking.
I
if-
do know.
Okay, and Tawny was just asking, do you miss your family, and how do you kind of remember them?
I know how my dad died because he didn't die in Auschwitz. He was sent to work. He was still 48 and healthy. When I lived in Sweden after the war, a young man that lived in Hungary on the same street where we lived, he survived. He was 35. And he came to see me in Sweden where I lived. And he told me he was beside my dad when my dad passed away. So my dad only lived 6 months. He died of starvation. No food, no water. And he died the same month. He died in December the 9th. His birthday would have been the 20th of December. He would have been 49 years of age. Yes.
Is your sister still alive?
No, dear. She died 4.5 years ago. She died in May, just before she would have been 90. No, she's not alive. No. No.
I have a student that is really shy and she wants me to ask you, why did Hitler hate your religion?
That he hated because, as I've said, 5 million were not Jewish. Why did he hate them? Hitler hated himself very much. So when somebody is loaded and full of hate, you take it out on people that minority. Minority means it's a smaller group. He hated himself. He wasn't even German, you know that? Hitler was Austrian. He was born in Austria. But he became chancellor in Germany.
We have a question here that goes along with what you're talking about. Polly was wondering.
Do you hate Hitler for what he did to you and your family?
She wants to know if you hate Hitler for what he did to you and your family.
I'm going to tell you something, sweetheart. Hate is a waste of energy.
Mhm. Very well.
I wouldn't give him the time, the minute, to say I hate. No. You know why? He hated himself. And the way he died like a coward, April 30th, 1945, He killed himself. First, he killed his girlfriend. Then he killed himself. He was a coward. He's not worth people give the energy.
We have another question. Have you ever been back to the camp since?
Yeah,
you
yes,
were
I
raped?
have. Yes, 14 years ago, September 2007. I did go with a filmmaker from Toronto and his wife and my book editor and English teacher from here, Bracebridge, Ontario, where we live. I did. We did a film, a documentary film.
Did you guys ever play games in the camp?
No, dear, no. Not where I was.
Avril here, she wants to know if you remember your first day at camp very well and what that was like coming to camp for the first day.
Which one though? Auschwitz? That was
Auschwitz.
Scared. Scared. They I remember my sister and I and 6 other prisoners on the top bunk. So we sat on there all day long, but we couldn't stretch our legs out. There wasn't enough room. So you sit with your legs up here. The people, the prisoners that were in the lower part of the bunk, they couldn't sit up. There wasn't enough headroom. It was awful. I scared, very scared. Very.
Were you ever cold? Were
Cold?
you ever cold?
Mhm. Yes.
I have a young fellow that has a question as well. He wants to know how many of the people in your camp were Jewish, were your religion?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know that. I know I've seen some that were Ukrainian. I've seen some that were Polish. There was not. And also, if I don't know, the children know that Jehovah Witnesses, even some that they were German, but Hitler wanted them to get rid of that belief. And if they didn't, they went to the camp. And gypsies, there were 500,000 Roma people.
We have another question here.
How many people survived?
260,000 out of 11 million.
Finley here wants to know, was there anyone that you remember in the camps being nice to you? Maybe other people that were kept there?
Yes, 4. And I wrote, in my first book, I wrote about them, in my autobiography, yes, yes.
All right, Peter here is wondering if any of the guards were nice to you.
Yes,
Or took
one
pity.
male guard and one female guard, yes. Yes.
I have a student that wants to know if any of your friends are still alive from the camps.
No, not to my knowledge, no. No.
Carter here wants to know how old you were when you went to Auschwitz.
How do I deal with it?
He wants to know how old were you when you went to Auschwitz?
19.
19.
I want to know, why did Hitler hate himself?
That's a good question, because he lost in the first war.
It's frustrated.
Eden wants to know if you thought you would make it out of the camp while you were there, or if you thought that that was going to be the last place you ever went.
I never thought that, I never had those thoughts, negative thoughts that I'm gonna die there. No, I knew I was going to be okay.
I have a student who wants to know, were there any bullies in the camp, in your concentration camp, other prisoners? Were there any bullies?
I haven't experienced, but I heard among the male prisoners that there were. I heard about that. I haven't witnessed it.
We have another question here. Just wondering if you knew who was harboring Anne Frank.
Who was hiding Anne Frank?
Yeah.
Well, the family were in hiding, the whole family. But they were, Germany had already occupied. They went into Holland, and then somebody that liked the Nazis, and they got $6. Would you believe it? $6, the equivalent of 6 Canadian dollars. They told where the hiding was. Wasn't that awful?
Hi, we have a question from Emmett here. I want to know if you were put in a ghetto before going to the camps.
Yeah, we were in the ghetto, yes. At home in Hungary, yes. 24,000 people were in the ghetto, yes.
We're getting close to running out of time here. If there's another question or two, we might have time for that if anyone has that, and then we'll.
It's okay. I'm okay. I got the time. Yes.
All right.
We have another question that was, did you have to wear a uniform in the camp?
It's a gray prison dress. Yeah. If that, but and we had to wear the Star of David. And the ones that were, I remember seeing the triangle, Jehovah's Witnesses.
Brady has a question. It's about your husband. He's wondering if you knew the person who hit the drunk driver who hit your husband.
He was taken to court. Believe it or not, he was a truck driver for a grocery company, because on the road, it was in February and icy, and on the road there were groceries all over the place. But the police found that he was drinking beer.
I have a student that wants to know how you were poorly treated. Were you ever whipped in the camps?
No, never. Because I always made sure, even when you line up for that food, I'm not going to be in the front row. I'm always in the middle somewhere, so they don't hit me. I wasn't pushing.
We have another question. Just wondering how often you were fed meals.
How often? In the morning, when they gave you that piece of bread, and it was and that mug of dirty water soup, it was up to you if you want to eat it all that time, or some prisoners broke off little pieces during the day and put it in their mouth.
Peter here is wondering how much sleep would you get on average in a night in the concentration camp?
I have no clue.
Not very, did you
Sitting-
get very much?
You were even scared to fall asleep. Yeah.
One more question here. Lucas is wondering, in the concentration camps, was there anything you could do for entertainment, or how did you pass the time?
Pass the time is worrying, wondering if anybody of your family is alive somewhere. That's how you pass the time.
I have a student who is very concerned about your birthday. And what did you do to celebrate your birthday this year?
This year, oh, it was big. I'm gonna tell you why, because the Jewish Federation, Yad Vashem, in Toronto, honored me for the work that I'm doing. I've done 25 years, about 4,300 presentations.
Well, I'm going to jump in here. Eva, thank you very much for your time today. Thanks for the students for all the questions, and especially to you for your answers. Like we learned a lot today, and especially your message about how hate is a waste of energy, and how we can move forward with better things in our lives. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is a blessing to be able to keep my family spirit alive. That's how I do it. That's how I deal with it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
Yeah.